Hello, hello. Thanks for joining me back here today. I wanted to take some time to record a video. It's actually Saturday I'm recording today because this weekend's a little busy for us and we have all the fun things going on. Getting the kids back to school this upcoming week and getting back into some routines of things that will bring for us. I've shared before and up to now we've got some fun things going on with our oldest, and now with my younger two going back to school. We're just going to be getting back into another round of busy schedules and all the fun that life brings. So we're looking forward to some of that. My daughter is starting high school this year, and she is going to be playing on the high school volleyball team. So she's really excited about that. And she had her first game a couple of days ago, and it was so much fun to watch her and see her play that way. I did not grow up playing sports much. I was actually into dancing. I was on our local dance teams and did private lessons and ballet and whatnot. So the world of sports is all new for me and something that I am trying to learn. And it seems that some of the rules and regulations that they have going, especially in volleyball here, it seems to be ever changing. I feel like I'm just getting to know some of the rules, and they're changing things up this year. They've let us know. So it's fun to try to stay on top of things that way, but also an adventure to try to make sure I'm up to speed to be able to speak her language and stay up to par that way. My other son that's still in school, he'll be back into middle school. Nothing new for him, but he's excited to get back and see some friends. And my husband and I are just ready to get some routine back. So with those kids, they keep us hopping and keep us on our toes, but it's all good things. With that, it's just a matter of trying to help find time for our interests and our hobbies, and that's one thing that's great about getting some routine back, so that we can get that schedule and have some set time that we know is dedicated for the time that we need to kind of spend a little time TLC and taking care of ourselves. So self-care, I guess you could say. So yeah, that's life. It's been happening for us lately. No major crazy updates other than just getting back into the swing of things, which I'm sure we're not the only ones. And especially if you're listening, I'm sure you're either right there with us or know someone who is. So we're all in it together, here to support each other, even if it's just a little bit of mental and emotional support, right? So but I wanted to spend the bulk of today's episode to talk a little bit about one of the things I talked on our first episode was kind of some firsts, and really dive into a little more of the story of like what got me started here and my why and what motivates me to keep coming back all of the time. So that's where I'm planning to spend the majority of today's discussion. Kind of start off with, I thought it would be fun. A couple of weeks ago, I decided it would be fun to show up every time and kind of share some new finds or some new of my favorites I've been diving into. In the past, I shared some quilting tools that I have stumbled upon. Last time I shared some fun treats I've been enjoying. I guess you could say a little bit of self-indulgence that way. But this time I thought it would be fun to show an item that I've had my hands on lately. One of my favorites if you're interested in the same time, but these would be project bags. And so if you are a hand stitcher, or maybe you even like English paper piecing, or some handwork that way, these types of project bags are really, really nice for that. And so I wanted to take some time to share this brand, if you will, that I've come across that I really love. This I have bought off of Etsy from a shop called Little Boat 88. I may have spoken about this on another episode, but I wanted to show you a few that I've stumbled on that I really like. My daughter actually took over this one of my favorites, and she claimed it. She usually has her stitching in it, but I took it out to be able to show you this. But the quality of these project bags are just hands down amazing. I love these. Shipping was fairly decent, reasonable when I purchased these a while back. That was before some of these shipping tariffs and stuff have been going on. Without getting political, you might be seeing a change in that, and that I don't fault the sellers for any of that. But as I mentioned, these are handmade. She makes them by order, so when you purchase them, they are made at that time. So there is a little bit of wait time that way, but so worth it. The quality of not just the fabric and the vinyl there, just the zippers. I am not worried about these breaking at all, no matter how much I use them. They also, she has different offerings, but the ones that I like also come with a little thread booklet. And see my daughter's stuff in there, her threads that her thread keeps. But it's got lined with felt in there, so you can kind of stick your pins in. I usually like to keep a couple of spare pins in case I lose track of one. And so I'll show you a couple of mine. I usually have a couple of extra pins stuck in there. The thread holds really well to that felt, and then it's got a little pocket. Maybe I'm using this wrong, but I like to slip my little snips, my little scissors down in there. And then this is a little trick my daughter and I have found, the way that we put the hole of the scissors right where that snap is. And then when you snap it shut, it helps hold those scissors in place. So that when you're moving that around and it's kind of moving in your project bag, those scissors don't fall out and come loose. But the size of them is perfect because there's lots of room that you can put all of your project in there with your pattern, your fabrics, anything you have for your project, and still be able to zip it shut and it doesn't feel tight. It is vinyl, so you have to be careful as far as getting it in the heat. A few weeks back, well, it's been almost a month now, we traveled down south from us where it was a little warmer, and I left one of my project bags in our vehicle, and while we were doing some shopping and in and out, and it got very soft and pliable. However, when it cools back down, it was fine. It wasn't so hot that the vinyl melted and stuck to anything, but you just want to be careful because it can kind of stretch that way. So again, this was one that I really loved. I just thought the fabric was so cute, and I like pink. So this was one that stood out and kind of caught my eye. Another one that I purchased is this cute little Mary Poppins. It's not branded as Mary Poppins because then I think we have to follow the whole Disney copyright stuff, but it's definitely her, which my favorite Disney movie. My current project that's in there, but you can see the lining is different, and then I've just stuck some cute little zipper pulls on there. So that's another option that she had an offer that I purchased when I first got mine. And another thread keep. I like to kind of keep some clips on there. Sometimes it helps me rolling my fabric and keeping my extra pins in this stuck in there and ready to go. That. And then my last project bag, I actually have 3 right now. I know some people like to have lots of whips, and so they have lots of bags for each of them. I can't have too many going or it overwhelms me, but I'm never going to get to the bottom of them. So right now I've committed to having 3, but I am not opposed to getting more project bags if I find some that catch my eye. This one is so cute. It is a nutcracker, and as I mentioned just a moment ago, I grew up doing ballet, and the company that I was part of, we performed the nutcracker every Christmas, and I was in that company since I was probably about 5 years old up until I graduated high school. And we kind of joke, but literally I played about almost nearly every part in that. And so this one holds a special place in my heart. I purchased this with the intent to keep Christmas patterns in it, but right now I'm kind of just using it all over. This is my new stitch. I'm going to share with you here in just a moment that I just got started this week. And then the inside's lined with some cute Christmas trees. And I have a cute little candy cane zipper pull on that one. Both of those zipper pulls are from Primrose that I received in like some of their sip and stitch boxes and whatnot. The project I'm working on right now, go back to this, is the thread keep booklet that came with that one. And I have some cute little Christmas scissors that I like to keep there. So I am working on a new press start that I just got started. Here's a little sneak peek of how some of those finishes look. This one is from Primrose. Surprise, I've shared how much I love their work. But this is her stitching rules, and it's going to be a larger piece, so it's going to take me some time, but I'd like to hold myself accountable to showing you my progress here and there. And I just started this one a few days ago. Stitched on it a little bit last night and this morning. I'm going to pop this out to show you. But I'm not very far on it so far. Just to this point. Got the word stitching done with the cute scissors and a couple of hearts at the top. I've got my cute little snowman needle minder. I know this isn't a Christmas piece, but I thought that needle minder would be cute to keep in my Christmas project bag. So that's how far I am on that. Again, just a few hours yesterday. I haven't gotten very far on that, but the progress I've made thus far. So that's some of my project status that I've had over this week when it comes to my stitching, and sharing with you some of my favorite item of the last couple of weeks. I want to say favorite item of the week, but I post these videos every couple of weeks. So project bags. And again, her name was Little Boat 88, and if you just go search that on Etsy, you can go through and find she updates her inventory quite regularly and rotates through them very well. So I can't promise that she's gonna have the Nutcracker and or Mary Poppins or anything that way, but she is amazing to keep those updated on a themed basis, so you can find some cute, I'm sure there's some really cute fall and Halloween ones coming out. And there's all sorts of themed ones. I've had my eye on some and get a little too slow to the draw, so I've missed out on a couple, but I like to try to keep an eye on that one every month or so I can see. That is lovely. I've got a straight piece of hair there. Anyway, so status on that one. I'll show you this one as well real quick. This piece is another primrose one, and I can't remember the name of it. Yeah, it's in here. Autumn Quilt, and I've been working on this one for a little while. Back when I've talked before about taping my edges, I tried stitching this one. I think I'm going to be happy with that. This is just my one here and there when I want something switched up. I'm not in a rush to finish this one. It's just something when I need a change in scenery from my stitching project that I'm working on. So you may not see status updates on this one very often, but I will definitely share as I have those. Those are my current 2 stitching pieces that I have in progress. I have a couple that are finished stitches that I would like to get completely FFO'd into an actual item. A couple of 1 or 2, I'm looking off to the side here where some of my stuff is piled up. Some fall items that I would like to get finished up to be able to use them here shortly. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share for my favorite item of the week-ish, 2 weeks. Or those fun little project bags. So let me know, do you do stitching yourself? Do you do some handwork? And if so, what are some great ways that you have found to keep track of yours? Do you have a favorite project bag you keep them in? Is there another company you'd like to help make me aware of? I always love supporting businesses and people out there. Maybe you've even made your own, and I'd love to hear how that goes. I've debated on diving into that world a little bit. I've seen some friends I follow on the socials, on different channels that have tried making their own. They look like they would be totally doable, just a matter of time and doing it. And right now some other projects are on my list, so I'm not opposed to that, but definitely a thought I could have in my back pocket for something to do at some time. Another favorite I wanted to highlight real quick, I don't know if any of you like to listen to podcasts or watch YouTube, or even have a movie or some music playing while you're stitching or doing your sewing that way, but depending on what I'm working on depends on how much I need to focus, and that will depend on what I can do. But a lot of times if I have the chance to stitch, then it's not quite as intense to focus as some other things, so I do like to have some kind of background noise going if I don't need to focus on something too heavily. But last night I stumbled upon another show, maybe this is one you're aware of, but on Netflix, and that's Sullivan's Crossing. I know it's not new, but I did start that one. So if you're somebody that likes the Hallmark feel type of movie, that one's a good one that I would really suggest. I'm only a few episodes in, and right now it's showing 2 seasons out. I think I've heard rumor they're working on another. So if you buzz through it really quickly, just know you'll have to wait for a bit for the next one. But some fun actors in that. Chad Michael Murray, if any of you are from my generation, that ages me just a little bit. But he is one of the actors in that, as well as, I'm so sorry, but I can't remember his name, but Luke from the Gilmore Girls, he's in that as well. And some fun new actors that do an amazing job that I've really enjoyed watching. So it's kind of, like I said, it has that kind of Hallmark type feel. Not super cheesy, but it's not a super rom-com type of movie. If you've ever watched the one Virgin River that's on Netflix, it's got a similar feel and vibe to that. So kind of that more mellow drama. I like to not have anything too crazy intense that I have to be really focused in on, but just something that's a feel-good show to watch. So again, it's called Sullivan's Crossing. And I think that would be a fun one for you to try out. Again, don't hold me to it because I'm not super far into it to know how it's going to be getting into things too much. So I'm assuming it's kind of a clean show. So far I haven't been hearing, any kind of vulgarity or words, and there really haven't been any other types of scenes to worry about. But I'll keep you posted on how that one goes. If it's one I would still continue to recommend, but if you'd like to give it a shot, that's a fun one. So yeah, that's kind of been our new finds lately, and some things we're getting into around here. Today is a little chat I wanted to spend just diving into what I'm calling, this is my episode of firsts, and sharing with you a little bit of my journey and kind of why I decided to dive into the world of quilting and creating, and what's kind of taken me into some different paths over the years, and maybe where some of that stemmed from. If I can find some pictures along the way, I'll plug those in as I'm visiting and chatting. But quilting for me, I want to say like, oh, it's in my blood. It's in, it's stemmed down deep. But I think there's a lot that we could claim as that in our lives. And you have to intentionally take time to really dive into and develop it. Even though there's something might come naturally to you, doesn't mean that you don't still need to take some time to develop and dive into that further. Quilting has been that for me. So right now I'm recording this episode, it's mid-year 2025. And I started quilting about 14 years ago. And when I say quilting, I'm saying like really getting into the idea of cutting fabric, piecing it back together, putting it into a quilt top. I have sewn for I don't know how long. My mom was a seamstress. My grandmas both were. Their mothers were. It just goes back generations in my family. And so I grew up around sewing machines, comfortable with quilt frames set up all over the place and all of that. I just didn't take the time to really sit down and do much of it until later in life. I was always really comfortable, home ec classes. They didn't faze me at all to sit down at a sewing machine and, hey, let's sew some pajamas. One of the projects we had in middle school was like a windsock. I don't think I even still have it. I don't think my mom still has it, but learning how to use a serger by sewing that, and I was just comfortable enough around them. They didn't even faze me. I do remember one time watching my mom. She had a little, I don't want to call it a side job because it was some stuff to help make her money while she was staying home with us as kids. But I remember one night watching her do a project and the needle going through her thumb, and I just, knock on wood, I haven't had something like that happen yet, but it's possible. So it's a hobby and a skill that you have to be really careful with. There's a lot of things that can go wrong between iron burns, rotary cutter cuts, needle sticks. Drop a pin on the floor and walk around barefoot, you're gonna get a stick for sure. But it's also one that's very enjoyable, and we can really find some joy in creating. There is something about creating and crafting, I want to say, because it's any type of creating, not just sewing or quilting or stitching, but any type of crafting and creation that can give you the satisfaction in life that you maybe don't realize you need. So I would encourage you that if you haven't tried something yet, to try to do so. Find an outlet that feels right for you, and don't overthink it. Just dive in. And that's kind of where I wanted to start with this, is to talk a little bit about, show you where some of my things started in my roots with quilting. My projects, as I mentioned, I don't have some of my older things from clear back in like middle school. If my mom has them, I didn't take the time to go dig them up, but wanted to show you where things kind of started for me about 13-14 years ago, and why I'm embracing the imperfectionism and the imperfections that came with that, to help show me how and where I am now. So we'll just start off with what I've got some things piled off to the side here, as you can probably see, and I tried to order them in the sense of like, this is where I started and this is where I am today. This is obviously not every project I've done. I still have a million sitting around, and we could sit here all afternoon recording a video talking about all of that. But I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the main things of some of my firsts that have gotten me into some other avenues and where that's taken me. So to start with, this is the quilt that was my very first official quilt. I know, crazy, right? Like, why would I even think I could tackle something like that as a first? Let me show you right here. I had to pull out all my pattern books to remember this, but this one was from the Nana's Garden quilt book. It's like an Irish chain. I want to say it was a double Irish chain, if I remember right. I don't know that it even says now that I'm looking at it. They just call it the Nana's Garden, but the pattern is designed that way. As I mentioned in a previous episode, but happy to retell the story. I just one day after my second child was born, my daughter, I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna try to make a quilt. And I don't know why, I don't know where that came from, but I just thought we're gonna give this a shot. And I lived about a block and a half, maybe 2 blocks away from a quilt shop. And so I loaded my babies up and I got in the stroller and we walked over to the quilt shop. And I remember walking in there with these kids, thinking, I hope they'll just behave long enough so I can look around and just kind of wrap my head around what I want to do. I'm just going to go kind of look. And I remember wandering around, and the quilt shop owner, she knew me because of my mom and my grandma's and some other acquaintances. But she, I remember her kind of looking at me and like, not really like, what are you doing here? But just kind of watching me for a minute. And I finally got to the point to where I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot. So I grabbed the pattern book and I started looking through it. And I obviously hadn't really read a quilt pattern before. So I swallowed my pride and said, can you help me out? I want to make this quilt and I need to make it for about a twin size because I knew I wanted it for my daughter as she grew into her big girl bed. And I said, I'd like to get some fabrics for it, but I just would like a little bit of guidance on like how much I need. I always feel like I've had an eye for like matching stuff somewhat decently, but I just wanted some guidance on like, make sure, okay, this is the one that you're going to need a half yard for. This is the one that you need a quarter yard for, and make sure it kind of ended the way I wanted it to be. So I showed her the book and I remember her looking at me and I could just see in her eyes, like, this is the quilt you want to tackle for your first. She didn't discourage me, but there was just that little bit of that energy I was picking up. And I was like, I can do it. You know, I'm just take my time, just help me out. I'll go figure it out. She knew I had some quilters in my life, so I knew she was like, whatever, I'll trust you, just take it and go. But I remember her telling me before I left, just let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to walk through that with you. I said, okay. I took the fabric, took the kids home, set the fabric down, looked at it, read through the pattern, start to finish, and I set it aside. And I remember looking at it for probably a good few months and thinking, what if I start cutting that fabric and I cut it wrong? And now I've waited so long, if I go back to the quilt shop, they're not gonna have the same color anymore for me to get replacement fabric. So then I'd set it aside again and I'd reread it to refresh my mind, and then like, okay, let's go back, we'll get this. And then, oh, maybe, I don't know if I'm ready. Like, I gotta wait till the kids go down for a nap to do this. And I always had some type of excuse. And one day I just got tired of having an excuse. And so I just told myself, we're going to do this and it's going to happen, and it'll happen and turn out like it's going to be. So I started cutting fabric. I'd set it aside. We didn't have a very big home at the time to have a dedicated space. So every time I'd want to quilt or do something, I would bring everything out into the family room, and the sewing machine would sit at the kitchen table, and I'd have a little bit of time. And then obviously having little kids around, I'd have to like make sure my rotary cutters were put up and all the pins were put away. I had a lot of little hands around the house that they were finding things easily. So my progress was slow, is where I'm getting with this. But eventually I got to that point, and I eventually was able to finish. And the satisfaction, I will tell you, is 100% worth it once you can completely finish that project. As you can see in the picture on the cover, and maybe even on the back, it's just that it's like a double layered Irish chain type quilt. And I finished the quilt and I looked at it and I was like, I'm not sure I like how much white is on that for a little girl. And as you can see, there would have been a lot of white there. And for kids, white and young children don't go very well together. And I obviously didn't think about that as I was planning and buying the fabric, but I was not about to a place that I was going to restart. So I got creative and decided, well, I'll add some flowers on there. And at that point I was like, well, I can't piece them because it's all put back together. So I went and talked to my grandma, and she's like, well, just applique them on. I hadn't done applique before. And that intimidated me a little bit, but she was so kind to help walk me through it. She and my mom both were just like, just do this, do a blanket stitch. As long as your thread's the same, you'll be okay. And it was tedious for me, and it was a lot of work, and I don't even remember how many flowers are on this thing, but we'll just say there's a lot because there were. But it ended up cute and how I liked it. Still a lot of white on it, obviously, but it helped to tone down some of that white. So at that point I was like, now what am I going to do? I don't quilt, like hand quilt. We didn't have a lot of money to be able to send it off to be quilted. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at that point, and machine quilting on my domestic machine intimidated me because this was a twin size quilt, and on my heavens, I had just pieced little and tried to do something further. So I talked to my grandma, and she was a hand quilter. My sweet grandma she loved hand quilting. That was her thing. She'd set up frames, get some friends around, and they would just sit and chat. Sometimes she would even go down and do that on her own, just to have some quiet time. So I talked to her about quilting this. She was more than happy to do so. And we talked through what we wanted it to kind of look like and what her suggestions were. And it ended up being so nice. I didn't put a very thick batting in this one. This one I think was about an 80-20, which in hindsight, having small kids and knowing it gets washed a lot, I probably would have put a thicker batting in, because now it's getting to the point that it feels just, I can still feel a little bit of batting in there, but it's very, very minimal. And it almost feels like just a couple layers of fabric at this point. But that's okay too. I wanted it to be more of just like, you know, something on top of the bed, not super puffy. But for those of you that might be trying to decide the differences in batting, that's a little hint to you too, is how much is it going to get used to be washed? Because over time that batting does wear down. So my daughter doesn't use this quilt anymore. She's now a teenager and has graduated to older colors and kind of more grown-up, sophisticated looks. But we keep this in her closet and keep it on hand, and I like to keep a hold of it mainly just because it was a first for me. Obviously it's her quilt, so when she's grown and out of the house and what she wants to do with it, it's hers to take. But I just hope she recognizes how special this is to have, that this is actually a 3-generation quilt for us. So I did the piecing on it. I worked on that together. My grandma did the hand quilting on it. And then at the time I wasn't very skilled that way. So my mom helped do the binding on it. So this one's a special one for us. It has been loved for sure. And I mean, there's some stains on it right there and some other spots here, and as I mentioned, has that loved quilt crinkly look, and it's a good one. So I showed the picture, but just to show you kind of a little bit of a larger view, and then I put a large border on it so that would be the overhang of the bed, and then the center of the quilt is that double Irish chain. Kind of shake that out a little. I will see if I have a full-size photo and I can post it in the video here in just a moment. But one thing I also wanted to highlight is not to shy away from being caught up in something needing to be perfect, because this helps to help you look back and show how far you've come. I was obviously just quilting, not knowing much, and I was quilting on a more affordable machine, I think is the way we could say that. And my seam allowances weren't very even, and I honestly was a new quilter. I didn't really understand the importance of that. So, I mean, I'm not ashamed to show this off, but you can see things didn't necessarily always match up the best. My seams were not straight, so a lot of my pieces didn't match very well. I didn't understand the importance of pressing to get those to match. And all of that, but looking back, that just helps me realize, you know what, that's okay. That's something I've learned, that's some progress I've made, and now I'm at the next step that I know the importance of that to try to help another quilt look a little bit more polished. I don't want to say better, because this one is still wonderful. I'm just going to toss these on the side as we talk. So that's where my quilting began, was a quilt like that. Don't ask me why I started on something so crazy. In hindsight, I would not suggest that to a new quilter. Didn't necessarily discourage me, obviously, I'm still into it, but I think I would have had a little bit better luck should I have chosen something differently, but I still am happy with the fact that I was able to accomplish it and complete it and not get completely discouraged by it. I'm going to show a couple of quilts. So that was the first quilt that I ever made, and it was for my daughter. Once I got that made, then I started feeling guilty, like, oh my gosh, it looked like I have a favorite child, so I better make some quilts for my other two, my boys. So we're going to show those here in just a moment. But before I get to those, later on down the road, I started getting into some cute little name pillows. It was from the Kimberbell patterns. And so I luckily had some leftover fabric, and this is my daughter's name, and was able to make her a cute pillow that matched that. So she had that on her bed with her cute little quilt that matched. So that was how that one ended up. Applique, by the way, which I'll talk more about some more applique soon. This is the quilt that I made for my oldest son. So I don't think they were in any particular order. I think I made hers and then his and then my youngest. This one was a rail fence design that I decided to try. I didn't have a pattern for it. This is where my love of just dreaming up quilts started from. So this one's kind of funny to look at, but I had fun with it. He had a kind of a more outdoorsy theme to his bedroom at the time, so we went with kind of those greens and browns and tans for this quilt, a little bit of blue in there. And so I just went with a 3-patch rail design and like the rail fence. And again, I still hadn't perfected my seam allowances, so I had, by the time I was turning these to match them up, they didn't nest well at all together, and that's kind of how that one ended up. This one was a full just rail fence, the whole thing, and then I just put a big chunky border around the outside. I believe my mom helped me on this binding too. I hadn't gotten into binding quite yet when I was on this, but this one, when I was ready to have it quilted, my grandma was tied up in doing some quilts for weddings at the time, and I was a little impatient and didn't want to wait for too long, so I decided I was going to just do some stitch in the ditch and quilt this one on my domestic machine. We were building a home. No, we weren't. Maybe I just set it up at my mom's for a reason. I remember doing this in my mom's basement, and I don't remember why I was doing it there. But I just decided to get my walking foot out and just do a stitch in the ditch between each of the blocks, which now the rule of thumb is to have the best results is not to have your stitches much more than a hand width apart. This block is definitely a little bigger than a hand width apart, and the reason for that, if you're not aware, is because the more width you have, the more your batting can bunch as it washes and wears down. So the more stitching you have in there, the more it helps keep that together. But again, I didn't know that at the time, and so I just did a quick little went around each block both ways. I left a pretty big chunk on the outside. I don't even have any type of quilting in the border, and because my seams were not matched up on my blocks, I was trying to stay in line, and so on the back, my machine quilting, that stitch in the ditch, I was trying to stay lined up, and it's lovely. We'll just say it that way. But again, I'm not completely ashamed because I look back and think that was a learning moment for me. I realized the importance of having those seams nested really well and those blocks fit together better and keeping straight on line with your quilting. That quilt, again, still got used and it was still loved. I think a while back, I think I've shared it. We did a quilt for him as his graduation, and so now he's using that. This one's actually been tossed out into our camp trailer, and it's now used for a camping quilt, which I'm fine with. Needs to get used somehow, but this is the pillow for him that matches that quilt that I made. Again, had some leftover fabric to match that. And then when it came to one for my youngest, I decided he had a fire truck themed bedroom, and decided I wanted to stick with that kind of color. It was kind of an antique fire trucky. And so I found a pattern, I've got the book right here, out of this Better Homes and Garden Easy Quilt Projects book that I really liked. And this one was called Foursquare. I think I can show you this because it doesn't show me the pattern, but this is what the pattern looked like, and it has your fabric requirements there. But so I decided to go off that one, and literally that's what it is. It's just a 4-patch with some sashing, and then the border with half of that 4-patch. And it goes around the whole thing with a little one post on the corners. So this one was a fun one for me to do, and as you can maybe see, my grandma helped me on that one do the hand quilting. And I just let her run with this one. I said, do whatever design you think would be fun. So she did some fun swirls in there, and then the border's just kind of some fun swirlies and loops. And the back is just some pieced plaid that matched the front of it. My learning one for this was that I was trying to square it up. And again, I was still learning the importance of squaring as you go. So when I got to the end, I couldn't get the quilt squared. And even with my edge pieces, I ended up needing to cut these a little funky to get the whole quilt finished squared. And so when I fold it, it's not completely square, but it worked well. He was just tiny, so this was a crib quilt, and it worked great for him for his quilt and toddler bed. And again, I think my mom helped me on the binding on that one too. I don't know if I was getting brave enough for binding, but I may have tackled that one. I don't remember for sure. And then we did a fun little pillow to match his. So all 3 of my kids had matching pillows to match their beds at the time. They've all obviously changed, and we haven't made updated name pillows for them since, but it was fun at that age, and as they had those growing up on their bed to kind of coordinate and match. Those were probably what I would say the first 3 quilts that kind of got me into quilting for my family. Once I got a little bit more confident in some of my skills and tackling some things, I decided to tackle sharing other, things with other people. Still completely imperfect. I've made a quilt for my mother-in-law and gifted that to her. The same pattern as the one I've done for my daughter, just in some different color schemes, and then my grandma hand quilted a design into the center of the block. I've done wedding quilts, I've done for family members, all of that, and especially baby quilts as we get new nieces and nephews in the family. That's kind of where some of that started for me. As I started getting a little more confident, I decided I want to branch out and try more skills in the quilting world, because as you know, there's different techniques and things to get more confident. So my mom and I attended a workshop here locally. It's kind of a little I think it was just one day. Maybe it was a 2-day thing, but I think it was just one day retreat, and Kimberbell actually came down to teach in it. And so we got to meet her. I'm going to look for the picture. If I do, I'll post it here. And that was really fun to meet her. Sweet lady. She honestly looked like she'd be my mom's twin. I know she already has a twin, but they could be triplets maybe, right? But one of the projects was her cute little Be My Valentine bench pillow, and this was actually one of my first applique projects. So I showed the applique name pillows. This was in between, oh, there's a thread, in between some of that, to help get my confidence. And once I was more comfortable with that applique, then I decided to tackle some more of her patterns that way. So this, I don't have it in the pillow form, but those of you that are familiar with bench pillows know that this little pattern is what got me going on my love of Kimberbell. I love whimsical, fun kind of theme it with the holidays type thing, and her patterns were perfect for that. So if you're looking for something kind of more bite-sized, not a big quilt that you just want to try a new technique on, I'd suggest trying things like throw pillows or table toppers or something to that effect to get your confidence on those little projects, so it's not quite so overwhelming as a big quilt that way. But do whatever works best for you too. Maybe you're a little more confident and just ready to tackle it all. That's wonderful too. Okay, this next one, I'm varying a little bit from the quilting era, quilting section, and just showing you that sewing and quilting actually can go together quite well. And I have a dear friend that Kate from Knot and Thread, that she has gotten into the design world, and we were lucky enough to have her come down and teach at our quilt festival the very first year that we opened that up 10 years ago, because we're having our 10th birthday party is this year. So 10 years ago we had our first quilt festival, and she was one of our teachers, and at that I decided I wanted to take a class from her and learn how to make this bag. So this is the carry-on travel bag, and it looks like it's listed as Patterns by Annie, so if you want to look into that one. Kate was our teacher for that. If you're familiar with her backstory, she was taught by Annie herself. So I was able to make this carry-on travel bag. My mom and I took this class together, and this was so fun. And so the reason that I categorize this as part of quilting is because to make this, you actually have your fabric sandwiches quilted. So I had mine just meandered, machine quilted, and you use the, it's like a flexi foam. I'm so sorry, I can't think of what it's called right now. Instead of just batting. So it helps give your project more form. This was fun. It was very intimidating to me because I had never done something to this scale, but I use this quite often. I actually need to wash it. This is a little embarrassing to show, but that's how often I use it. And I'm almost ready to take some time to tackle making me another one. I wish I would have thought ahead and grabbed my mom's to show you too. Hers turned out so cute. It's more of the bright pinks, like the project bag I showed you in the beginning, pink and grays and whatnot. But it has a travel handle that you can either take it off or keep it on there. Inside there's all sorts of pockets and pouches for you to pack your stuff in, as well as the outside and the sides. Hopefully you can still hear me okay. And some zippers, and oh, this was just so much fun. I like I mentioned, I was intimidated during the class, but Kate is such a wonderful teacher and she's so patient. So that was about 10 years ago. It took me a little while to completely finish it. Obviously didn't finish the whole thing in class, but once I did finish it, I've been using it and loved it. Oh, a little trick, if you ever do bags like that, they don't really have much of a firm bottom. Like if you think about like, oh, it's a duffel bag, it's kind of more slouchy. I wanted something that had more form to it, and I was kind of stuck on what to do. Well, coincidentally, I had an acrylic ruler that had broken, and the project is designed with a little sleeve in there. So, and it was almost the perfect size that I was able to, my acrylic ruler there in the bottom, and it gives it the perfect amount of stability so I can load it up when I pack it, and it gives it some structure there. So Kate has designed many other patterns. If you're ever interested in things like from her, she has bags, backpacks, satchels, even the cute little side bags right now that are so popular. Her own pattern of a duffel bag. It's a different, obviously different than that one. So I've got quite a few of her patterns right here. They're on my list of to makes that one day we'll get to. But Kate is just such a sweetheart, and she's such knowledgeable. So if you ever have some time you want to look into that. Again, merging the quilting world with sewing and kind of expanding some of your skills that way, and just taking a little at a time. Sometimes projects can take years to finish, and that's okay. Don't let it overwhelm you. Set it aside, come back to it with some fresh eyes and a fresh mind, and you'll fall in love with it at one point, I promise, and especially once it's done. So speaking of classes in the Quilt Festival, one of the things I wanted to talk a little bit about, a first for me, was the first time I taught a class. I have some dear friends that are part of the Quilt Festival. I've mentioned before I'm on the committee for that. And the committee members that I'm there with trusted me that to give a shot at teaching a class. And I was so grateful for that, because it's something I always wanted to get into. I just didn't quite have the right avenue. So this pattern was one of the first classes that I taught. This one is Division by A Bright Corner. And Oh my goodness, this one was so fun. And everyone in the class just had a blast. We just had the best time. And if you haven't looked into patterns by a bright corner before, I would really encourage you to do so. Her patterns are not just so cute, they're easy, and especially for beginners. Her overall quilt looks like, oh my gosh, that would have taken forever. But as the quilter and the seamstress, like, you're in there looking at it thinking, my gosh, this block is so much easier than it looks. And so it's kind of like a mind trick, I guess you could say, and saying like, well, that took a lot of work, when really you as the quilter are like, yeah, actually that was a kind of a beginner quilt. So if you're looking for some fun, fast, easy patterns, I'd suggest looking into some of hers, and don't let the look intimidate you, because the way she writes her patterns are just spot on to make it so easy for you to do. But this one I made the throw size, and I actually just used a batik jelly roll because I loved the variety that it was giving, and then I just found a pop of color to go with it. Now, even as the class instructor, mine were not perfect, and they were totally fine with that, which was so much fun to give me that benefit of doubt in trying that. But when I say it wasn't perfect, I mean, like, I lost my corner on that triangle, and there's another one that I lost really bad that I'm looking at. But that's the whole point of the class too, right? Is to get in there and teach you and help you see that, and have that instructor showing you like, I'm not even perfect. Just show up and like enjoy the process and learn along together and with each other. Here and there when I do triangles, I still lose my corners, but I'm finding ways to get better at that. And this was one of the projects that I learned the importance of that, especially, I don't know if you can see it in the video. I should hold that up. Like, look how that's almost embarrassing, but you probably wouldn't notice if I wouldn't have pointed it out to you too, just looking at the whole quilt. So this one's a really fun one. I'm kind of tempted to make it again in some other colors, maybe with a little less white. This could apply to almost any holiday, any theme. She also has different sizes for you to do as well. So first class I taught in the Quilt Festival was one of these. There's another class that I taught another pattern designer, and now I'm getting to where I teach my own patterns. So let's merge over there. I have kind of written my own patterns here and there for a little while, but not officially like published anything to make it super formal. So I have a few that are still in my back pocket that I just made for the fun of it. I still need to get written up and typed up that way. So this is not my official first pattern design, but it's my official first finished pattern design, if you will, if we need to make it formal. I showed this, I think, last episode, but this was my cross-hatched one. So the fun thing about this is just taking an idea and making it your own. So cross-hatching is obviously not new in the quilting world, but I was able to find a fun way to do that, and a fun way to put a spin on it that makes it just like, wow, that's so much easier to do and so much more digestible. This one is a throw size as well. I like throw size quilts because they're doable, but they're not overwhelming. And this one's just done with a layer cake. So that one's a fun one to do too. So first pattern, and now I've kind of dove into that one a little bit, that I'm a little bit addicted. I officially have, I think, 5 patterns right now listed in my Etsy shop. So we can head to Etsy on the Coppered Clove and see those current. I have 2 in the works that I'm getting ready to finish to release. My plans are by the end of the year. And I'm actually going to be taking a small little break from pattern designing probably for the rest of the year. Unless something big comes up that I just can't resist. But because I have a few projects that are, I love sewing other people's patterns as well. So I need to make some time for that. But about that timing on my little road, my journey to creating here, I decided to give a go at stitching. And this is when I got into cross stitch. I talk a lot about Primrose. I have tried some other projects too, and there's a lot of fun designers out there that I love, but this was my very first cross stitch that I finished. I'm so sorry, I should have pulled this out. I think it's like Love Birds or something like that. This one was a really fun and fairly quick stitch to do. I started using Aida fabric, and I stitched 2 over 1 on this one. And so two threads over 1 square of Aida. I'm so sorry, I don't remember if this is 16 or 18 count, but it is Aida cloth. It's a really great one to start with if you're wanting to get into stitching. And when I started getting into stitching, my mom used to do a lot of stitching, and so she had quite the collection of threads. And when I started getting into it, she said, you know, I don't think I'm going to do stitching much anymore. My eyes are going a little bit more than I'd like. So she started her focus on just sewing and machine embroidery. And so she gifted me all of her cross-stitched thread. And so I have a box that I just pulled through a stash. Some of it's not even labeled, so I couldn't help to tell you what colors I use or anything at this point, unless it's something I purchased from someone. But this was a fun one to finish. I set the frame over on the side, but I have these finished so that you can see some little felt dots right there. I have a frame that has Velcro, so I can just make these little fronts, and then I just switch them off with the holidays. And then if I don't want to put that frame out right now, I have, you can look on my Instagram page, but right now I have a fall holiday one just that I put in like a little tier tray that I have. And so you could just even set it up just like that, and it works great. So that's our first cross stitch, and now, as you've heard and know, I'm getting quite addicted to that as well. All right, so my fun news for today is letting you know I had the opportunity to get my hands on a long arm machine a while back, and it's been a little bit of emotional ups and downs for me because I, number one, just haven't had a lot of time to dedicate to it. But when I first got it set up and working, I struggled with it. It does not have automation on it, which is completely fine. But I was having a hard time with my stitches regulating and working well. I was getting eyelashing, if you're familiar with that. I was getting eyelashing both on the top and the bottom. It seemed like nothing I could troubleshoot and do was helping. I was getting so frustrated and discouraged that I would just turn it off and leave it. My husband was so encouraging and just trying to, go give it a try again. And I said, well, every time I turn it on, something happens. So then it just discourages me more. I was just getting to the point that I was almost done and almost ready to get rid of it. And I kind of swallowed a little bit of pride and decided to call up a friend who is very knowledgeable with long arming. And they came over, messed with a few things with me, and really showed me some nuances in machines that I just didn't quite dare touch that way. And it seems like we have it working, and I've had a lot of fun with that. So just to show you progress on this, this was my practice piece, if you will. When I first started this is how it was, what was happening. So you can tell that was like my first little section, and the top would look somewhat decent, but then I'd flip it over and the bottom would just be like a mess and eyelashed. And so then I'd mess with some tension and get it fixed, and it would look better, and then I'd be going along, and then I'd get more. So I was getting so discouraged and frustrated. So again, called up the friend. We thought we'd have it working, and then I'd mess with something else, and or not mess with something else. I'd get practicing some more and then just have more. And the biggest problem I was starting to have was my thread would just pop out of nowhere. I was getting the tensions right, but then I'd be going along, my thread would just pop. So I thought, well, maybe my thread is old and it's bad. So I tried some new thread, still didn't seem to help. Tried winding different bobbins. Everything. I felt like I was striking out. So I talked to the friend once more, and they said, this is kind of a random thing, but when was your needle changed? And I paused and I thought, I actually don't know, because when I purchased it, I've left the same needle on. Like, why have I not thought of this? And so we did a little bit of research, found the right types of needles. I came home and put a new needle on, and knock on wood, cross my fingers, all the things. I've had some success with it since then. So if you're having struggles yourself, don't forget your needles. What I'm kind of thinking might have been happening was in the eye of the needle, I'm wondering if there was a little burr in there from the thread wearing, and it was just shredding my thread every time I would go through that. It probably didn't help, but as I was trying to fix tensions, there was pressure going on that and all the things. So far that's been working. I've really enjoyed it. That was my first initial practice piece. I have another over here that I just practiced on before I dared put a real project on. So just to give you a little clue, when I got the green one to where I felt like it was done, I put a project on, started going, and of course it didn't work. So this project I'm going to show you, I actually I had about half of it finished, and I had to go through and unpick it all because it was just not the quality I wanted. So I got some more practice fabric and some batting, and we really honed in and got it refined. I practiced some more and got it there. So don't give up is the overarching story to my learning lesson there. It takes some time, it takes some patience, but you'll get there. I, as mentioned, don't have automation on it, so it was a lot of just that manual moving. I've tried some like pantographs following, doesn't quite work for me quite yet. I feel a little jerky with that still, but again, practice and we'll get there. So right now I'm comfortable with a meandering stitch and I'm okay with that. So this is my project that I finished. This one was a cute little Kimberbell topper. You can see all that. Fun little watermelon one. This was just a small piece. I had the top ready and finished, and it was a digestible piece to try doing at the same time rather than a whole full quilt. I did have to turn this 2 or 3 times. My long arm's a 15-inch, so not super big to get a big area at once, and taught me some things that way. But I liked the meandering stitch because I didn't have a rhyme or reason to need to follow. I could just go with the flow. Well, it felt nice and decent to me. So that's fun. I did try some other, I'm still practicing with some shapes. I feel like I get a little bit off my being smooth and, you know, like a cadence with that if I try to throw in some shapes or any further design. But there'll be a time for that at some point. Right now I'm just being patient with myself. So I fully finished this one last night. I put the finished buttons on it, but I finished it last weekend. I just haven't had time throughout the week to get those buttons on, but I finally have those, so now I can consider it completely finished now that summer's over. Right? It's a cute little summer piece, and I don't have the bandwidth to use it right now, but it'll be ready for next year, and that's okay. That's good. So I don't have plans right now to do a whole lot with my long arming. I'm still trying to decide if I want to get better with custom quilting or maybe try ruler quilting a little bit or put automation on it. So right now this is just solely for myself to enjoy, maybe do a few projects here and there for my mom when that comes up. But if any of you are into the long arming world, you know how much time gets put into a quilt itself. So to do somebody else's is a little intimidating. Not wanting to ruin someone's project, and like I mentioned, having to unpick this one. I'm still working on trying to cover back up the holes that the initial stitch made. Just trying to get that fabric to want to go back together and not show those unpicked places quite as much, but we'll get there. So if I ever take that long arm stuff a little bit more, definitely be sharing that here. But right now I'm just happy to say I was able to get past another little hurdle that was part of my quilting bucket list journey that way. So to kind of wrap things up, we've been about an hour here, so I don't want to ask you to stay here for too much longer. I just want to end things here and just encourage you to take things one little step at a time, because as you've heard, my journey has taken a lot of learning moments. There's been projects I haven't shared today that have so many other learning moments that as I get ready to share them here and there, I'll share a story behind that as well. But this is all with my firsts, whether it be a first quilt, a first class, a first stitch, or even a first long-armed piece. You all start somewhere with a first, and those firsts don't have, they don't need to be perfect, and quite honestly, in my opinion, they shouldn't be perfect, because they show you your journey and help you learn lessons along the way, just like everything in life, right? So, little therapy moment there, if you're ready for that. But I hope you have the most wonderful next couple of weeks before the next time we're able to sit down and chat. And hope you have some fun things planned to wrap summer. Fall is almost here. I have a transition decor theme, if you will, that way, that I moved from the 4th of July into what I just call sunflowers. And not quite ready for fall yet. Obviously the leaves and pumpkins aren't quite there yet, but I did pull out my sunflower decor, and I have a little corner of some small projects set up for that. So I have a fun quilt that has sunflowers that I'd like to get started on, that maybe be able to enjoy by next fall. But as I mentioned, I'm ready to do a few of some projects I've stuck off to the side that I'd like to get going on and spend some time on, some things for me, not just patterns that I'd like to put out there. So that's my plans for the next couple weeks, is just prioritize some time for things for me and for some things that I would like to do and enjoy for myself. So I hope you're able to find time to do the same, and we will catch up here in a couple weeks. Have a good one.